Good morning, good afternoon, and evening, everyone. I don't know about you, but I certainly find it hard to believe we are approaching the end of 2021. Sometimes it still feels like we're in 2020, no? Yet here we are looking to the future and getting excited about new trends in business and technology in 2022. So let's think positive, right? I think today's topic is definitely a positive one. My name is Julia Flaherty, and I'm LEDGEVIEW Partners Digital Marketing Specialist. I'm super excited to be introducing today's topic and presenter, but before we can dive into the content, I have a few quick housekeeping notes to cover with you, so bear with me here. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'd love to introduce LEDGEVIEW Partners. LEDGEVIEW Partners is a business and technology consulting firm that specializes in marketing automation and CRM implementations. We serve a variety of businesses and industries and specifically work with Microsoft Dynamics 365 solutions among a variety of marketing automation technology. Everyone is on listen only mode today, but if you do have a question or comment, just go ahead and post that in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards as we do have a full agenda today. Everyone who signed up for today's presentation is going to receive an on-demand link once the webinar is available, probably later this afternoon, if not later this week. All right, now that that's out of the way, it's my pleasure to introduce Chad Collette, the Director of Marketing at LEDGEVIEW Partners, who will be sharing his insights into the best practices to gain Microsoft Dynamics 365 user adoption. User adoption is critical to your success throughout your CRM's lifetime, yet it can easily be overlooked throughout various project stages. Chad is going to elaborate on that and much more today. He comes with ample experience on the topic, so with all that in mind, let's welcome him. Hi, Chad.
Hey, Julia. Thanks for that warm welcome, and thank you to everybody joining us today. And ample experience is another way of calling me old. I'm cool with that, but not to date myself. I've been working with CRM solutions for over 20 years in user, admin, and advisor roles, and it is just amazing how far these tools have come. Now, many moons ago, when Microsoft first got into the CRM game in the early 2000s, now this is pre-Dynamics era. My company at that time was an early customer, and we implemented the beta version of Microsoft CRM. Now, I'm going to share more about this experience later in the webinar, but to say it was an epic fail is really putting it nicely. And user adoption, well, except for myself, we really had none. The product itself was flawed immensely, but as we know, with failures, successes are born. And if that first solution had been better, we might not have what's now known as Microsoft Dynamics 365. But speaking of Dynamics, we're here today because of a common challenge that we see among organizations really all over the world as it relates to CRM. When we ask Dynamics admins, managers, and team leaders about their biggest CRM challenge, it often comes back to the same response. The same thing I experienced all those years ago, user adoption. Now, how in the heck do we get people on board with using Microsoft Dynamics, or really any CRM solution for that matter? In fact, most of the tips are universal in nature. Today, we're going to tackle some ideas and some best practices to engage CRM users as you get started with Dynamics, as you may release new enhancements, after you go live, and when things do get stale, and it can happen. I was fortunate enough to give a presentation similar to this one to a live audience, remember those, at the Dynamics User Group Summit in Orlando a couple years ago. And I think even though user adoption is a frustrating challenge, it was refreshing for people to see this common challenge among their peers and to really know that you're not alone. The biggest frustration is that you can really kind of do everything right and it can still fail. I mean, it isn't fair, but when you take into account kind of that human element for user adoption, kind of all bets are off. Oftentimes, it's some preconceived notions or misinformation that's really holding people up. Now, we're going to talk about some CRM misconceptions that may be hindering your user adoption rates, and then we're going to roll into some tactics to put into place kind of before, during, and after the rollout of Dynamics, which many people attending this are already at that stage, but it also includes any upgrades and enhancements, things that organizations should really plan for and execute on an ongoing basis. And then we're going to kind of close things out with a few resources that you can check out and you can share with others within your organization. Now, I was going to pull this slide out for time's sake, but I really do like this analogy. Now, I'm not sure if we have any runners on the webinar today, but I'm a runner, especially with so many races, now restarted in 2021. It's kind of, ramping back up. So a race, it really helps drive a person when you're training to have that end goal in mind, the date of the race. Now, I like to think about dynamics as a full marathon. Well, it's actually much more than that because it's really kind of a race that never ends, kind of like, Forrest Gump, who just keeps on running. But for anyone that's trained for a 26.2 full marathon, you don't start off by just lacing up your shoes and running for 4 to 5 hours. You need careful planning and steps to get you there, and milestones that you can target. Hitting your 5K mark, which is like making the decision on your solution and selecting the partner that's going to lead you through this project. A big milestone of being able to run a half marathon, which is getting into the analysis, the design, and the development of your solution, the upgrade or the enhancement. And then the finish line, if we have one, is really going live. But unlike a full marathon, you grab your medal, you need to keep training because for us runners, there's always another race on the horizon. There's another phase of CRM, another enhancement. And if there's any runners on here that have done full marathons like I have, once you cross that finish line, you're like, that's it, never doing this again. Till the next day or a few days later, once the body bounces back and suddenly you're online researching another race or the next phase of your training. We also know that people can easily be derailed from running, and CRM is no different. It's where CRM misconceptions come into play. Now, I'm sure you've heard your fair share of them, or maybe even had a few of these thoughts yourselves. We've seen so many people say, when they talk about dynamics or CRM. Sales is a good example of this and how they engage with customers, how they keep their notes, they track their opportunities, respond to inquiries, and more. They may have done things one way for so long that they kind of fear losing that personal touch. With the ability to automate so many processes with workflows, it is amazing time saver and an assurance that things are going to get done. But some do have that fear of automation. They may feel that if they don't do it themselves, it's not going to get done correctly. Or back to the first bullet, they're going to lose that personal touch. They may fear automation could put their job in jeopardy. Now, when you talk about making sure all the information is in dynamics, how many times have you heard, Big Brother's watching? They may not see the value in having information within dynamics and that it's only a tracking tool to really ensure that they're doing their job. I've heard it many times. Do you want me to be out selling or do you want me entering information into CRM? I don't have time for both. How about duplicating efforts or not trusting the data? I've heard both of those more times than I can count. Now, for the lack of the trust in data, that has been warranted at times, and we're going to talk about that in greater detail. It's too complicated to use dynamics. Again, this actually could be true, but dynamics shouldn't be complicated. And I got a great story that I'm going to build on in a bit. Maybe they feel a CRM solution isn't right for their role, or they don't have time to use it, or frankly believe that if they do use CRM, it's not going to benefit them in their role. All these negative misconceptions can really derail an organization's goal for high user adoption rates, which is why it is so critical from the start to ensure that we address these. So before you go live, either with Dynamics 365 for the very first time, rolling out Dynamics to a new department, or even launching an upgrade or a new enhancement, we need to focus on user adoption every time. We do this by eliminating every single excuse for not using it. I mean, I get it. It's easier said than done, right? No one's going to say user adoption is easy. If it was, we wouldn't have a need for this webinar and you'd all have half hour back in your day, but here we are. That is why it has to start from the top with your leadership team. Dynamics has to have an active executive sponsor and key stakeholders. Whether you were around when they rolled out Dynamics or not, do you know the vision and the user expectations? If you don't, ask. If you don't have one, you didn't miss the boat. You can still create that vision and those expectations. I mean, it's really never too late. When you create your vision and user expectations, you need to be transparent. Otherwise, they will think it's just Big Brother watching. Focus on what the user gains by using CRM and how it benefits them as a person in their role directly. You sometimes do need to spell this out for folks. Know that change can be uncomfortable and acknowledge the pain points of the current process or the system, or the lack of processes or systems for that matter. Get engaged and create some buzz and excitement around dynamics. Prior to designing the system or your upgrade or your new enhancement, you need to get a solid project team. Make sure you have adequate representation from all the types of users, including power users. It's so important to get the right people on the bus to drive this project. You really want to enlist those who are or will be using Dynamics for their input. Now, these users often have a system for managing their work that can really provide some good insight for improvements. They also have a great sense of other users and the struggles, and typically have a good rapport with coworkers. They can be your early adopters, and they can spread positive messages about the use of Dynamics at your organization. As you get started, make sure it isn't just a one and done meeting, but stay aligned throughout the project and keep the team consistent throughout the project. You may have a member here and there that only needs to provide additional insight, but the core group should see this through. You don't want to build Dynamics or push out a new enhancement in a silo. Everyone on the team should be aware of the time commitment. Implementing Microsoft Dynamics, as you know, or rolling out new enhancements or doing an upgrade should not be considered a side project. But in many cases, it's an add-on project for people on top of their current workload. You want to value the investment and make the time to do it correctly and ensure everyone is aware of the time commitment that's going to be required. Seek the guidance of your Microsoft partner to let you know what type of time commitment may be needed on your part. With their experience, they can give you realistic expectations that you can plan for, that you can anticipate, and that you can communicate. If any members of the team doesn't have the time to dedicate to the project, see if they can hand off other responsibilities during that project time so they can dedicate the time to this important initiative. As I mentioned, enlisting input from the users of Dynamics is so critical as you're considering system design. I cannot stress this enough. And this means engaging users not only for the initial design of Dynamics, but again, for your enhancements, for the upgrades. Anytime you're trying to improve Dynamics for users, make sure those user voices are heard. Now, back to the quick story that dates back to Microsoft's attempt to enter the CRM market, pre-Dynamics back in the early 2000s, I touched on. I think it was around 2002, 2003 or so, but at a previous company I worked for, we decided to invest in a new CRM solution. Awesome, life is great. It was 100% researched by our IT director without any input from sales or from marketing. We simply heard, we're getting a new CRM. Now, our IT director took the lead and customized CRM on what he thought was needed. Now, I'm sure you know where this is going. Yeah, from the navigation, the layout of the screens, and the process just to enter an activity was so painful, to say the least. I think it was, and I'm not kidding, around like 10 clicks just to enter a simple note or an activity to an account or a lead or a contact. Of course, sales immediately hated the system on day one, and we really never recovered from that. 2 years, we kind of spun our wheels of the solution before scrapping it and going another direction. This time it was led and designed by the sales and marketing team for use, and user adoption just really skyrocketed. It's not that our sales team didn't know the value that CRM could provide to them, but the tremendous amount of work just to use the system was just a major roadblock. Now, another barrier to user adoption is trusting your Dynamics data. As I mentioned earlier, it is important to ensure your data is as clean and accurate as possible. Take the time necessary for this step. Importing bad data, well, it's not going to solve any problems. How will your users need to access Dynamics? Do they need access on the go as they travel or out of the office? creating a solid mobile experience is a game changer, and it's going to have a dramatic impact on your user adoption. And make sure that the layout and the navigation are all mobile friendly, and it's so important. Some companies opt to push mobile to phase 2, but it's important. If it's important to users, by the time you maybe roll out phase 2, you may be already underwater when it comes to user adoption. And it can really get tough to get back to the surface. That's why phases are so important. This saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, is so true when it comes to CRM. Well, really anything in life, but it's important to have multiple phases as you evolve your use of Microsoft Dynamics. And while you may want the world right away, giving users too much to learn, too much to absorb, or too much to do can also backfire on you. I'm sure we've all seen videos on what's possible with Dynamics 365. And it is absolutely mind-blowing how some companies are using Dynamics to succeed. But they really didn't get there overnight. Many companies just want to kind of knock it all off at once and be done. But imagine giving your users 100 new tools or ways of doing things. It's never going to work. You want to start small. Let users gain that knowledge and feel good about their use of Dynamics before rolling out additional functionality. Too many changes at once can get confusing, and it's only going to take your user adoption in the wrong direction. Now, it helps to work with your Microsoft consulting partner on this, as they can really lend expertise based on your company, on your industry, and similar projects they've done. Having a phased approach tells people that Dynamics is here to stay for the long run as well. Now, as you plan your rollout, you will need an ongoing plan for training. You want to be proactive and don't leave this until the end. Training should not be an afterthought. Who is taking charge of the training? Who's going to conduct the training? How will the group of users and will the training differ among those groups? You want to keep your groups small, keep them interactive and hands-on. But you also need to be aware of how people learn. Are they best by doing it hands-on? Is it best by watching videos? You're going to need to conduct this training, either in person or remote. Maybe it's a combination of both, which in today's world is most likely the case. Think of all the training materials you're going to need. This is another area that your consulting partner can help you with. They do this all the time, at least they should. But one aspect that gets lost on so many companies, and it's easy to do, is future training. Maybe you plan an awesome training, you just kill it, and people are loving Dynamics. Then next month, somebody new joins the sales team. Are they going to get the same training? How about that new customer service rep or the marketing associate? Or is it just one of those, hey, Lisa, can you show Doug how to use Dynamics? And that's all the instruction they're given. How do you think that it's going to turn out? Lisa may be awesome, both as an employee and a Dynamics power user, but it's likely her training won't hit all the marks and won't be the same each time for consistency. Okay, you've got your training plan covered. And again, if you don't, it's never too late for training for any user. But just as important on how to use Microsoft Dynamics, you want to communicate why your company invested or is investing in a CRM solution, why you selected Dynamics, and how it's going to help them excel at their job. Be open, elicit feedback, and hear concerns. People are going to have both to offer. If they're unfamiliar with Dynamics, show them some videos of what's coming to get them excited. This can be seeing Dynamics for the first time or a new enhancement you're rolling out, such as, maybe a new UI. It's also good to explain in a positive manner the consequences of not adapting Dynamics. Your everyday users know how they accomplish their tasks. Get them engaged at the design phase as it makes sense. Provide regular updates and let them know that their day-to-day experiences are really the basis for implementing these changes. Use all your available means to spread the word. Put it on your company intranet, in an internal newsletter if you have one. Create a Dynamics user group on Microsoft Teams to collaborate and connect, and even bring up and use data from Dynamics often in your company or your departmental meetings, and kind of going old school and no email's not dead, but send regular email updates to your team for it. Now, we hit on a number of things that can be done before you launch, starting with support from the leadership team. keeping the user experience top of mind and engaging with them, planning effective and ongoing training, and communicating early and often. So we're at the stressful day of your go live, and it's here. And again, this can be rolling out Dynamics for the first time, launching an upgrade or enhancement to the solution. As we've discussed, preparation is the key to ensuring that your users are excited about Dynamics, excited about the upgraded environment, excited about a new enhancement. Now, your go live day is no walk in the park, but go ahead and celebrate the project and the massive effort that your Dynamics team put into this. Trust me, no one's going to know the amount of work that went into it. So give the team the credit that they're due. Now is a great time to re-communicate the vision and the goals of Dynamics. Provide access to user training resources, and more on that in just a minute. But users are going to have questions, and some are going to run into issues. You want to have patience and remain positive and encouraging. Involve all the departments. Even if the sales team is just using Dynamics, does the information relate to marketing? Does it relate to customer service or to operations or engineering? Let them know why they're using it and how they are using it to drive efficiencies and drive growth. This may spark an interest by another department that is going to want to create efficiencies of their own and request the use of Dynamics in a future phase. Now, as you led up to your go live day, you planned your training and you provided key members some early exposure to the solution that's coming. Now that you're live and people can use these tools, now is the perfect time for everybody to, get on their laptop and execute more training. And while doing it early is good, if they don't have access to keep using it, they may have forgotten some of the training they learned. This way, after training, they can continue to use Dynamics on their own. It's important for leadership or your executive sponsors to be present and once again confirm that vision and the expectations of using Dynamics. As you wrap your training, make sure every single person is comfortable with Dynamics. Set the next steps. Ensure they all know where to find the resources that you shared. Just because you put them in an email, we all know our inboxes can get a little crazy and it can get lost. Make sure they all understand these resources, including human support resources that are available. This could be an internal power user who's able to help, or support that you've enlisted from your Microsoft consulting partner. You want to make sure you're keeping that energy level high and a really positive vibe. But how do we do that? As I stated, have leadership present. But really, if you're holding an in-person training, what's the one common thing everybody loves and embraces at work? Yeah, it's free food. If you feed them, they're going to come, that's for sure. And you can even coordinate this with your remote users to kind of give it that in-person feel. I know so many people are kind of doing that blended work experience right now. And while the launch date may fade into the past, communicate, communicate, and communicate. Don't give people that excuse that they just didn't know what to do or where to go from help. And keep it going. Keep it going tomorrow. Keep it going next week, next month, and next year. With a multi-phased approach, there should always be a next step. And if you're using Microsoft Dynamics Online, you get new enhancements twice a year and they roll out throughout the year. There is a lot of information from Microsoft Online and from Microsoft partners that detail new releases and new functionality. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. Don't be afraid to ask your partner, okay, what features in this new release can really help our company? What features can help our people? What features can help our processes or our growth? Engage with them to learn more. It is so much easier than trying to digest the full enhancement release. That's the partner's job. For example, LEDGEVIEW puts together, some webinars. They put together blog releases on all the new enhancements that come out to really help put that into bite-sized nuggets that you can easily understand, easily see, and easily absorb. As the days and the weeks go by, make sure to follow up. And it sounds tedious, but this goes from a management or to an admin to user direction. It goes from users to admins as well, users to power users. Continue to provide resources, adjust and add as needed. As users find cool tips or tricks in Dynamics, you want to encourage them to share that knowledge with others. You may be amazed, but Some of our most popular kind of how-to blog posts and videos contain what some people find to be the simplest of tips, like using global search or how to create and share personal views, building some personal dashboards or just different ways of using advanced find. When people can share knowledge, it really empowers them and it creates a positive environment. You can take these tips, create simple videos, and even store a video library of how-tos right inside of your Dynamics. LEDGEVIEW's done this for one of our vertical solutions, and all the users have access to these training videos and new enhancement videos each and every day as a key resource. Oops. And you want to make sure, again, you elicit feedback. Make sure you have a way for users to submit that feedback. Yes, you need to have a process or a way to ask questions or voice concerns constructively, but give them a way to easily share what they like about Dynamics 365. Provide ideas for future functionality and enhancements. Many of the new features that Microsoft launches is really based on crowdsourced feedback. Help desk tracking. Remember, if one user is having an issue, it may be a common question that arises with the other users as well. Make it easy to diagnose and correct. Also, get your users involved in online, local, or internal Dynamics user groups, or appoint a key person that can relay that information to users that's going to be helpful and drive efficiencies and advance use of Dynamics and ultimately adoption. Now, personally, I'm involved in a Dynamics user group here in Wisconsin, and it is great to see the collaboration between admins and users at these user groups, and they address common challenges to help everybody kind of get more out of Dynamics. But there's a ton of online resources as well, which are especially helpful in times like this, as people are more at home and they may not get out as much, so they really want to keep focusing on their learning and using those resources. And here we are in communication, but we all know it can't be all sunshine and rainbows. Users need to know that there's consequences for not using Dynamics. They need to know that they and others alike will be held accountable if they fall short of Dynamics use expectations. Make usage goals attainable, and yes, they may differ from role or department, and it's okay to set some stretch goals. For managers, lead by example. You should have usage goals as well, and be held accountable to your boss. That is one aspect we see a lot. Management telling others to make sure to use Dynamics when they don't use it themselves. What message do you think that sends? In your one-to-one meetings, your coaching sessions, use Dynamics as a tool as you evaluate updates, reports, opportunities, pipeline, cases, etc. Anyone gone dashboard crazy? I know I have. I really have more dashboards than I need, and I don't access them all the time, but they are such a super valuable tool. If you're not using any dashboards, why not? If you need help creating dashboards, reach out to a friend at work, a power user, an admin. What are others doing? Do you have a company-wide dashboards that are available to help you access information and monitor on your own? Help with your process, help holding yourself accountable. And not to beat a dead horse, but keep evolving. If you fall behind, it may seem minor to some, but you're going to have a major impact on your user adoption. Keep moving forward. Keep taking advantages of new releases. Those releases, like I said, come out twice a year. They roll out online. And for on-prem users, there's also upgrades for you, and stay aligned with your vision. After you go live with Dynamics, the upgrade, the enhancements, it's easy for user adoption to drop and for things to just kind of go stale. If they do or are, start at the top again. In the beginning, you started with leadership, and that's the place to target once again. Talk to your admins, your power users, and your everyday users. Why are they not utilizing Dynamics? What pain points are they experiencing on a daily basis that use of Dynamics could overcome? Dive deep if you can. Sometimes it can be really hard to squeeze information out of people. They likely will resist even admitting that they're not using Dynamics, although you can easily prove that through metrics from Dynamics, so there's no use hiding it. But if they do offer up suggestions, some may fear having to actually start using it based on their suggestions. And you want to identify any negativity. I know we've all seen this. There's always seems to be those one or two users that just kind of buck the system. and their negativity spreads to others. Try to nip that in the bud. Find out the source of the negativity. Can it be corrected? What needs to be done to correct it? If you can turn someone around that's negative towards dynamics into someone that spreads positive messaging, doing that can go a long way. And as stated before, evaluate your data. It is so easy for data to go bad, especially in today's world as people are moving so fast. It is nearly impossible to keep up. If you're a user and feel the data is bad, processes are non-existent, say something. Tell a manager, tell your admin, tell a power user. The time is now to enact a change. Bad data is only going to get worse if it's not corrected. Are any of your user adoption hurdles related to your dynamics vision or your goals? Has your business changed? So maybe the vision and goals need to change or evolve. Look at your processes. Are they effective? Are they being followed? If you think that they're being followed, are they actually being followed? Engage users to find out. We did a survey asking people that were attending one of our webinars about their sales processes, and it was amazing how different people at the same company submitted answers. We had managers that said processes were great and being followed, and users that kind of said, what processes? Take an honest look at your processes and enlist the help of an outside company like LEDGEVIEW as needed. Oftentimes, employees will be a lot more honest with them than they will be with management. And again, keep dynamics top of mind every single day. So I'm sure you've all heard this before, and I like to kind of end with this, but if it's not in dynamics, it doesn't exist. It's a great mantra, and it's going to hold true if you believe it, if you empower it, if you do it. You know, don't bend on that, because if you bend, they're going to bend. So that's all I've got for you today, and I know I've covered a ton of stuff in a very short amount of time, and I hope you're able to take away just a few nuggets and ideas that you can put into place at your organization. And again, Microsoft partners like LEDGEVIEW partners are here to help you succeed. So feel free to reach out to me at any time with questions. Would love to hear any user adoption tips you might have, best practices, and stories, both good and bad. We love to hear them. So with that, Julia, I'm going to turn things back over to you just to quickly share some of our resources and close this thing out.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chad. I don't know how everyone else who tuned in today is feeling, but I know I feel a lot more excited about going into my CRM and finding new ways to utilize it in my day-to-day and collaborate with my teammates. So if you also enjoyed today's session, we have a large variety of content available at ledgeviewpartners.com. We just published 5 new CRM agnostic ebooks on the topic of gaining user adoption from the start, during your rollout, after your rollout, how to debunk common CRM misconceptions and myths, and how to regain user adoption if you happen to lose it. So whether you like ebooks, webinars, demos, tutorials, infographics, blogs, or otherwise, you are sure to find something that suits your learning style. We're also very active on social media, and if you want to be alerted as to future webinars, I do suggest subscribing to our blog so that you never miss a LEDGEVIEW Partners update. All right, we hope to see you join us for future sessions. It's been wonderful having you join us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.